So what's on everyone's mind this morning? Wow, didn't mean to kill the conversation. Yeah.
You got us into deep thought. That's good.
Deep thoughts with Silvana Nani.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was on my mind, George, just thinking about it, was the lead gen. In terms of how's that going? What's the uptake on the lead gen? Is it being used? And one just practical question I've forgotten. Please remind me. Does the report go direct to the client, or does it come via me, the advisor, first before it goes?
That is a fabulous, Andy, man. And I did not, ladies and gentlemen, I did not ask Andy to ask this question. So one, lead gen is being used fairly widely. Two, success metrics depend on the individual advisor's sales and marketing plan and process, and how they use it. The report is emailed when your prospect or client clicks submit in using lead gen. It is the only report in the entire system that is sent on their request, right? Where should we send your to them?
Okay.
Now there's a big caveat here. Amazon and SendGrid just tightened up. AI, as you know, is driving its tentacles throughout marketing. And that's being used to market and to also hide from marketing. SendGrid and Amazon, two of our key service providers, have tightened their policies, their protocols for what emails will go out. They mistakenly, and I believe it's remedied, I'll confirm it, but they mistakenly moved us into the cannot send. So we went back and said, hey, we are not using this to spontaneously send email to target people. It is only on request. And the only way for someone to get so we are going to add a little deeper disclaimer on above the submit button with that check, yes, I'm a human, etc. But I believe that they've now get it, because at first they came back several times saying, nope, you're going to ruin our reputation. We're like, well, people are literally asking for the email. So yes, It sends an email. Yes, it's being used. It's being used in several ways. One is to support marketing, and one is to do the senior leadership alignment report, because now, and I could go on about that for the next 15 minutes, but those are the two major use cases. And it's free out there. Anybody watching this, it is free. Sign up, help yourself.
And there's a URL associated with it. But if you want to embed that URL onto your website, is there any other collateral to sort of support, this is what it is, take a free lead gen, whatever, and click on the URL and off you go? Or do we do that ourselves?
Both. There are some resources in the community. I think if you look under advisor marketing or marketing tools, but I recommend, the challenge is, it's funny. I was just talking about this with Mike Garrison this morning. The question is, it is fantastic to go out and when someone completes it, that's a very high quality lead. And my admonition, you should react when you get the email, somebody just completed, you should react immediately. Stop what you're doing and call them, email them, get hold of them. And you can use AI to find out exactly where they are and how to reach them. Do it in the moment. So there's a long-winded answer to a simple question as well.
Yeah.
Marketing is changing. AI is changing marketing so rapidly right now. That it's changing marketing rapidly. So
yeah, thanks, George.
Interesting time.
George, what's on my mind may be related to that. And I apologize for my ignorance, but Andy, I'm a longtime business advisor, and I'm on the practice squad for Growth Drive. So I'm just sort of breaking on, carrying the water and stuff, trying to get going with it. And I'm wondering, what was on my mind is, related to lead gen. It's like suggestions or what resources are available to help get those first 3, 4, 5 clients. My thought is to use something like that to let people do clarity level 1 and walk them through it on a complimentary basis, and then see if they want to go for a paid engagement going forward. But I'm open to, I'm sure everybody here has got a couple laps on me at least when it comes to that. And so I'd love any thoughts or feedback you guys have on that.
Yeah.
If this isn't the right forum for that, George,
Oh no,
just
this is
kick me out.
absolutely the right form, Tim. This is front of mind, at least for me right now. Yeah.
I mean, from my point of view, Tim, I think lead gen is a great conversation starter, and that offered free, so that's one.
That's one of the 2 links that I get on my portal, right? So
Yes.
where
Yes.
it's the second one, and they can take clarity 1, but they don't get anything. And is that what you were just talking about?
Yeah, George, go on.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I'm just going to share my screen very briefly here.
So
Go ahead,
so
Andy.
so that's one, and then obviously meeting in direct face to face with people is the best way I prefer to try and engage through workshops, meetings, that sort of thing. In just discussion then, and offering a free clarity 1, but sometimes going in obliquely, Tim, in the sense that, do you know what your business is worth? I mean, it's that old age question. Do you know what your business is worth, etc., rather than leading with the clarity, analysis, and strategic capacity that would come as a result of completing the report, an educational piece, and of course there's a very good report that comes out which is purely educational. So it's that question of what is your business worth, is another great conversation starter to get them into clarity 1, which is free, and then having a whole pile of value there to prove your worth by doing it. And then basically the paid engagement is then upselling them into a deep dive clarity 2 or a senior leadership alignment, etc. And then of course the third way, again very similar, going in oblique, is the equity value planner, in terms of that wealth conversation, in terms of how much you need, you know what your business is worth, but how much you want to live the life that you want to live, okay, without taking away from the very qualified wealth planners, which I'm not, but at least we can have that conversation to pique the curiosity, and then go in back to clarity 1. And let's do clarity 1, because that's really where I want to get them to show not only have this value transformational conversation, building on the growth conversation, transformational conversation leads into one another, and then get clarity 1 done, and show this huge amount of value that you offer, which they can walk away with for free. That's the way I do it. You can get people to pay for it, but I do it for free because I want the long-term monthly retaining engagement for upselling deep dive clarity 2 and building a value growth plan, and then helping implement and coach that as the general contractor. Number 3, really 3 and 4 is where I want to sit, although sometimes I got sucked into 5, which no more, please. No more. I want to
Andy disappeared.
I want to go back to being a 4 and 3.
Yeah.
If that helps.
Got it. Very helpful. Yes. Thank you very much.
It's interesting, and this is what Mike and I were talking about. Tim, I know you know Mike. All of you who were at the summit last year met Mike. Here's our challenge as advisors, and Andy just hit the nail on the head. When we have the good fortune to be in front of a qualified prospect, and we'll just leave what that means for a sec. What should we do? And when we are trying to start conversations with qualified prospects, how do we do that? And there was an interesting article, and I'll post it in the community this morning, that was just written by a thought leader on the impact of AI on marketing. And there are a couple of things that are true. One, Mike made the point that email is dead, and we can debate that. But the reality is if everyone's emailing, then no one is emailing, right? Because I use Google as my inbox, and Google has if any of you send me an email, it's going to go in my primary. If you send me marketing, it's going to go into my promotions tab. Then if it's social, it goes in my socials tab, right? Cool. Thank you for organizing it. I never look at my promotions tab. I go in, I click all, I delete. Have a nice day. So how do we differentiate ourselves, and what is our most effective? Who here gets more than 80% of their new opportunities from referrals? Right? Yeah. And yeah, so it's like, wait, yeah, that's me too. That's all of us. Every time I ask that question, this is the answer. So if it's referrals, how do we become sharper at referrals? And why would we me too with email marketing? So we can use lead gen in judicious ways. We can use lead gen, well, in judicious ways, and it can be effective. And every once in a while, a bona fide opportunity will come out of it, which is why I say pounce on it. But the reality is what we need to become better at is creating strategic COIs. COIs from whom and to whom we refer business. And you've heard me say it before, we are in the habit of saying, hi, you're a wealth advisor. By the way, interesting statistic. Did you know that there are approximately 3,000, you think about this, 3,000 wealth advisory firms in the United States with $500 million or more of assets under management, which implies that they have between 75 and 150 qualified business owners. Qualified, I mean with more than 2.5 million of gross annual revenues. So might a better strategy be to create a strategic relationship with the right wealth advisor, a qualified wealth advisor, from whom we might win business, who trusts us and might invite us into their client. Remember, the value of a client to a wealth advisor is 10x what it is to us, the lifetime value. Their relationship with that business owner is immortal, and they are trying to ensure that immortality, right? And we need to also refer business to them when appropriate. When is it appropriate? I'm sorry, I'm proselytizing, but when is it appropriate? And I'll stop. It's appropriate when we talk to a business owner and we ask the business owner, for example, has your wealth advisor ever asked you about the value of your largest asset? They haven't. Would you like to make an introduction so we might have this conversation? And if that wealth advisor is not willing to have that conversation, they are not serving the greater good. They are playing a what's in it for me game, and there should be something in it for them, but they are hoarding. They are actually preventing their client from creating an immortal business. And that's when I say your strategic COI. It's like, hey, I know you're using Rick. Rick's a great guy. I played golf with Rick last month, but if Rick doesn't want to have this conversation with you, I have someone you want to talk to. They're not interested in taking the business that Rick already has of yours, but they are specialists in helping you maximize the value of your largest asset, which is your business. And they and I work together. Now imagine having that conversation. And that's why the Protect Value Equity Planner is killer. And the Protect Value module is specifically designed in collaboration with super senior level wealth advisors to spawn this conversation. Okay, I'll stop. Sorry, I'm super passionate on this issue.
It's interesting answering Tim's question there. The principles being applied are pain and pleasure, aren't they? So we're leading with pain. The more pain we can uncover through what's your business worth, and what money do you want to live your full next chapter of your life, and you don't have it. That's pain, which you can build on. Now, it's interesting that here's something, this might be just my personal opinion. Wealth planning, I think, is quickly becoming commoditized too. And if it's becoming commoditized, particularly with the use of AI coming in, then those people who want to escape that commoditization and are thinking for the future, we have a fantastic proposition in terms of the adding value, because along the three stages of identifying value, protecting value, building value, then of course managing value, once it's been harvested, they can be with us hand in hand. So we've got a lot to give them in order to get from them, in order to keep them, as George often says, extremely relevant.
Yeah.
Because if not, they're going to be commoditized, and in a year or two, or maybe a few years, they're going to be out of business, really. You know, why would AI would work out what I need and so on and so forth. It's just software related, etc. So I think that wealth planners are, if they open their eyes, and this is the problem, obviously, you know, bit like accountants I meet sometimes, they've got their, like an ostrich, they've got their head in the sand and not willing to listen. So our messaging, our conversations, which are transformational, not transactional, transformational, that's where we can bring a whole pile of value to the table and uncover a whole pile of pain. If we think about it, rehearse it, and wait for those signals, and then in we go. And it does require rehearsal. No doubt, we all know that as experienced advisors. Sometimes we can't wing it. Every time I've tried to wing it, even now, sometimes it goes all over the place. So I try to look for the signals, and then have a two-way conversation where I can put in my pain points. But that growth conversation, I think where we're different is that as advisors, we set out to be deliberately transformational. We're just not transactional at all, and that growth conversation starts that whole process with the Dan Sullivan question and the DOS follow-up stuff. And very often, very few business owners have that sort of conversation, and that's value right up front.
It's interesting.
Very helpful.
Silvana, you have your hand up. You know, this being a business advisor is front of mind for me right now too. Silvana, go ahead.
So I just wanted to kind of cycle back and sort of recap what I thought I heard about the lead gen and how best to use it. Or better yet, it's not just the lead gen tool per se, but in general, how do we run an effective lead gen operation to bring more clients to our practice? So it seemed to me, and what I got from this is that the lead gen is important, although it might not be as effective as the COIs and the referrals. So referrals reign supreme as far as the return on investment. They have a longer lead, but they're higher quality. However, I also heard that it doesn't hurt for us to run the lead generation operation, you know, sending it out or creating that as part of our outreach, because it might not have the same return. However, it might spread the awareness of what we are in the business of and the value we bring to the table. And even if we send 500 lead gen outreach emails or with a link, and we only get like 10% or 5% of that, that's still worth it. Did I get it correctly? Running both in parallel?
I would say yes, although I would also say a couple of other things. Using the lead gen tools as part of the with the CIO, because you know we're building a relationship where we want credibility and trust, and putting the lead gen tool out there, when they start to do their due diligence on us, they see that we're active. But also we bring a number of tools to their armory too. So certainly I would be offering those tools, as I do offer those tools. This is what we can do for you and attract people in, which is going to benefit you and us. So the lead gen tools are applicable in yes, you heard right, but also in the CIO, and definitely one to many is better to one particularly as many of our practices, we don't, we're solo entrepreneurs, or we've got 2 or 3 of us, and then we use a network of people. I don't have time to spend loads of time marketing, and nor do I like the idea of, LinkedIn campaigns and one-to-one and that sort of thing. I'm not saying they don't work, but to me, it's a bit cheesy, to be honest. It's not. Sometimes it comes across as not very professional in terms of sending out stuff. So I try to work with CIOs, but if somebody drops into my lap, fine. But I will use those tools so that any individual who comes to the site or wherever can fill out a lead gen, and I use them with the CIOs as well.
Yeah.
And Andy, that's an interesting. Silvana, I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second. It's super. I agree with everything you just said. If our ideal client, not if our ideal client is 2.5 to 50 million, with the average in Clarity being 11.4 million, cool. Is the owner of an $11.4 million business going to? What is the likelihood that they are going to respond to a marketing email and complete a questionnaire? It is not impossible, but what are the odds of you getting hired? And is that, to Andy's point, is that the best investment of our most limited resource, time? And I'll stop there. Silvana, sorry to interrupt.
Can you please repeat what you said? Because at least for me, you're coming in and out, so I didn't hear the whole question that you posed.
So yes, you did hear correctly, and you understood correctly. Okay. Our best route is through the CIO, and the tools that we have are as valuable to us and as valuable to the CIOs as to us, because we represent tools that we can bring to them that will help them help us with the clients they refer to us, and also increase their credibility and their value to the clients. We have tools which we can use based on the clients that they refer to us. Okay, and the CIOs that we're talking to are interested in those tools. They want to see what tools we have. Tools, methodology, process builds trust and credibility, and they like to see that, particularly if they're proven as well, even better, because we're representing them, and so on. So that's how I would use them as well. And I would say here in UK, we 10x growth. It's a long game, unfortunately, but we're building relationships with a bank, and we've made great inroads with the community bank. They're very impressed with the tools that we have, the idea of strategic capacity, and we're now building workshops for their clients to attend. So we're moving forward there. An investment banking house as well, very interested. They see the value immediately of clarity, strategic capacity, and the analysis, and so they're looking at a couple of clients they want to refer to us. The wealth planners, we're working with a financial planner too. They're a little bit more difficult, to be honest. I think in reality we've selected the wrong one. We've selected one that is too big for us, so that they're concerned about, well, if we gave you 15 clients, could you handle them? The answer is no. So I think we've selected a national wealth firm when really we want a smaller firm, really.
That goes to qualification.
But the point is, strategic capacity, growth drive, it's resonating with those CIOs, which is really was our first test.
Very cool. Very cool. Identifying the right people to talk to.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to share another avenue that I've been building for the last few months, but I haven't been able to jump on it, and I'm going to let you know how is it working. At least here in my area. By the way, can you hear me well? Is there a problem with audio?
You're good.
No.
You're good.
Okay, excellent. And Tim, you are in Baltimore, right? So
Yes.
you probably could attest. Tim and I live in the greater Washington, DC metro area. And so we have a very vibrant economy here because we have 3 different jurisdictions, so there is a lot happening. But another way that I am looking to trying to test using the pre-assessment is the working with like more smaller like industry association, like companies get together to trying to learn from each other and grow together. And I just started this process where I'm going to test to see if I can run the free one across the membership. I haven't quite decided if I'm going to do the one-on-one or for relationship building, or just send them the link. I will probably do the first one just to get going and see how that works, and then test the one where they do themselves. But the way that I was thinking and the angle that sometimes on the group level is baselining the as is for the companies. Because another way of looking at it, and this is my angle, is all these companies are there to grow. And they are hoping that people within that group will give them tips, will alliances and so on. But nobody's looking at like growth. So there are business development and sale and joint ventures or partnerships. And so I'm bringing the growth framework and the growth education and looking at it from that perspective, so then they can better understand where they are based on clarity and growth drive, and what are the real opportunities to grow based on that. So it's good for the organization, and it's good for the members. And I'm hoping that maybe there will be, this pilot will give me some information as far as how that works, and I'm happy to share with everybody. But that's another angle I'm looking at using the free, because I feel like in every aspect of growth, either be business growth or economic growth, lack of data makes it impossible to speak more effectively about what works. And so my angle is, well, let's start with the data first. And clarity gives wonderful baseline and a wonderful starting point, then about the growth and the value. And then hopefully that spurs the transformation and the rest of the conversation. So I'd love to hear your feedback.
I think that's a very exciting thing to do, Silvana, because the blue ribbon for that would be to get that association to say all their members need to take a Clarity One
Yes.
report as a membership, but you get paid for that, and then you've got a almost benchmarking data as well. If that could be done, that would be
that's exactly my point.
The blue ribbon. I guess it takes quite a bit of relationship building, but it's possible. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good idea.
So thank you.
Silvana, the longer you talk, the more great people I think of. So you just keep going. So.
And speak of the devil, Mike has now
Yes.
joined.
How you doing, buddy? You feeling better?
Slightly.
Wow, you look
Hey,
like
Mike.
you lost.
You don't look any better. So
The medicine doesn't fix that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike
No,
is getting over this profound flu that is going around.
I don't need to do abs for a couple of weeks. I'm good, I think.
Actually, I don't know if you guys have followed it, but it seems like COVID has been growing in numbers quite more than expected. So it might be flu, it might be COVID also.
It's always something.
It was norovirus. It was the norovirus.
Ah, okay.
It was just
Well, I hope you guys feel better.
a really bad day.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, we were talking about, I brought up the article and I promised to share it in the community, the article you shared with me at 4:44 a.m.
Well, I waited.
And so I just teased a little bit of our conversation this morning about the impact of AI on marketing and on protecting from marketing, and how do we, and really the question is, I guess if I could summarize, how do we differentiate ourselves from the herd? And I went on a bit of a tirade, as I am right now, I guess, about about the importance of strategic COIs, and getting and giving and all
Yeah,
that good.
it's really interesting. George and I have a lot of early morning conversations as long as we don't wake Sid up, right? Because that
But
was
is Jaws up or is she just out of earshot?
right. But you know, and it was kind of a bigger picture. So like there are no defined answers, but I think everyone knows my bias toward predictable referrals. Like you should have a sales funnel. Another person that I really like is Marcus Sheridan from They Ask You Answer, whose new book comes out in April.
Okay.
New book comes out in April. And but like if you think about it, most of the stuff out there shows you that today's buyers are at least 80% of the way through their buying journey before they will ever reach out to a salesperson, someone that they perceive in a sales function. At that point, how much can you really do? How much can you differentiate yourself? And that game's already done. And so what we're trying to do is we're defaulting to this use of AI to somehow get us higher up in the marketing funnel. But the same sword that cuts also has another edge. And like you see this with spam protection. So AI, this advantage that we think we're getting from being able to send more weak ass marketing crap in different ways, right?
I
It's
love you, man.
just more like that's the nicest way I could put it. That edge is going to be taken away by AI faster than spam filters did with email. Like everyone in this call, except for Silvana, has been around for a very long time. And we've seen a lot of terrible, terrible things over the 30 or 40 years of our lifespan, right? But I don't want to, I don't want to burst your bubble going forward, but so here's the deal, right? How do you beat what AI is going to do to sales and marketing? Well, what is the only form of sales and marketing that can't be canceled, that can't be taken away, and can get you meetings with ideal prospects when they're not in the buyer's journey? Like if you understand that there's no shortcut in sales and marketing, there's no magic button other than advertising, and that's not sales and marketing, that's advertising. Buying customers still works. Buying customers still work. It's just expensive, and you have to make sure that ROI associated with advertising works for you and your customers. But when it comes back to you, like at the end of the day, you've got to figure out how to be worth meeting when the client's not in the buying process, because that's when you define everything. When we think about clarity, when we think about growth driving, like the biggest worry that I have, and some of you I got to meet at the summit, right? The biggest worry I have about what's coming down the pike is what I perceive as a gross misunderstanding of how to help companies growth drive in their marketing and sales, right? Because I've been a coach for 30 years, and if clients don't have the resources to change is very, very risky. And Silvana, what you said about data is everything. Like, I love clarity, but like George has seen it, I don't publish it, but I've got a intricate fact finder on the marketing side for my clients, which gives us all that data about what's actually occurring, Silvana, right? It gives us the data, and that data creates a safe and shared language towards growth.
Shared language is very important, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. We talk about transformation, it's been my experience, but sometimes we come across a little bit too geeky and too brainy. And I think that if we hit the right data collection that puts us in the same footing with our clients, it makes it easier to have the transformation conversation without sounding too consultative or too advisory.
Well, it also saves a lot of time. Like there's a reason I wrote "Can I Borrow Your Car?" It's because it's the one unique story that captures the culture of everything I do and what my ideal, because here's the thing, if you're trying to market to everyone, you're failing and you suck. You should only be marketing to those clients, Joe, when they find you. Like, you want to market to the clients that when they find you, Joe, they go, thank God. Where have you been? I've been looking for you, Joe, for 10 years. Like, that's who we should be. We should be tailoring our message and everything we're doing so that those clients that are unique backgrounds, our unique talents, our God-given abilities, that's what we should be trying to do is we should be fighting to allow those people to find us and know we're out there. I mean, there might be somebody that wants to meet Tim, for example.
Well, not Tim, but
Maybe. Maybe
It's a short list.
at a bar in Maryland, right? Which is, but and like I can't blame him because my wife got sick before I got home. But I mean, that's really what I'm saying is, so much of what I think is the challenge with sales and marketing is that, back to what Silvana said, is like, do you and the client, are you guys talking about the same thing? Clarity really helps with what you guys do. But especially when you get into marketing, man, you want to talk about accountability as the evil, nobody wants to talk about accountability in marketing. Like the sales team, they're the ones that are accountable, right? But the marketing people don't want to be accountable.
well, not in the growth drive methodology. Marketing works for sales, and I'm a
Yeah, totally.
I totally agree, but the metrics in marketing are very fuzzy. And if you are not very intentful about trying to figure out what are the metrics and how do they support the sales bottom line or the company bottom line, that's a different story. And again, I'm not Mike in marketing, but very often when I work with clients, I say, well, is this marketing effort to grow your brand or to do lead gen? Because, there is a capability maturity model in marketing and sales, and they are, a life cycle. You cannot do sales unless you have established your brand, or people know why you are opening your mouth, why they have to open your email, why they're talking to you. So different messaging is in the branding and building it, and then different in sales.
Something Mike just said makes me think of a point, Andy, that you make so often, which is, which I'll shorthand as, we need to listen, right? We need to listen. And what clarity allows us to do is have a neutral arbiter or a neutral script that gets our client talking. And why is the growth conversation, although it's not enshrined in the software, why is the growth conversation the starting point of our process? Because it gives us the opportunity to listen to the client and to ask questions about, now imagine things that we cannot do in marketing. And to Mike's point, when we show up and they're outside of the buyer's journey, and we are, imagine that, right? And imagine being able to have and listening, and something that a lot of us forget is that the fact that we have to pay our mortgage and that they will help us do that is not the customer or client's problem. It is the worst message or signal you could send. The most interesting conversations you have in your life, if you think about it, were questions where you got to share freely and at least equally. That's what we want our clients to do. If you shoot me down if you disagree, please.
No, and I think going back to language, that growth conversation, we do not lead with a product. We don't mention strategic capacity. We don't mention clarity. It's meeting the owner where they are with that Dan Sullivan question. If we were to meet in 3 years' time, what has to have happened in your life and in your business for you to have, and whatever it is, and then what are the dangers, opportunities, and strengths? That conversation is just a cocktail conversation, which transforms itself into. So I think that there's something there in terms of language, but I want to pick up on what Mike was saying as well. There's a nuance here. I'm not a marketer. My mindset is around being an educator. I'm an educator. If I can get in front of people and whether they're in the buying journey or not, and just provide some education for them in terms of growth, whether that be in a public workshop, a private workshop, a CIO generated workshop, and just talk about and generally meet them and facilitate, when it's talk, I'm wrong there, facilitate a conversation in that group, which is an educational conversation. I guarantee that one or two people will, at the end of that session, put their hand up and say, can I have a chat with you? There may or may be something in it or not, but it doesn't matter, because it's an educational, hopefully facilitated workshop and conversation, which is a bit more memorable than just presenting. And then we can go from there. So my mindset in terms of marketing is about educating. I'm an educator in growth.
That's what marketing is. Marketing is education. It's letting prospective customers know about what you can do to help. Right. And so, like, so often, like, I have one of my keynotes is sales is a noun. Right. It's not good or bad till you add people. Right. we tend to try and redefine terms to meet our own insecurities or arrogances. Right. You know, and so, like, I with absolute respect, I've never met you before, I would say that you're misdefining marketing by saying it's not education. Like, it is education. If you're approaching it from the most pure sense, like, without the manipulative stereotypes and things like that, it's like, hey, I'm here, I've got this great thing. Does it help you? Do you want it? Right? That is an educational process. It's not academic, but it is educational.
Yeah, good point. I see that.
I totally agree with what Mike said. I feel like there is for me, in my experience trying to work about the talk to prospective clients and CEOs and founders about the growth journey, I feel like the education component I found, and I love this portion, or like, I'm in love with Growth Driving Clarity for making that very clear from an educational perspective, is that just because you want to grow, that doesn't mean you are ready to grow.
Yeah.
Meaning that we'll find where you are, and then based on where you are, we have a growth conversation that might be getting you ready to grow versus I'm growing. And I think just that, I haven't quite perfected it 100%, but that's what I find out, that the light bulbs go on and they want to know more. And that has been something that I've been trying to refine.
Silvana, that's spectacular. Like, the way, like, Tim and I just talked about this a little bit on, it was Thursday, right, Tim?
Mm-hmm.
That was a killer burger, by the way. That place was awesome. But like, I'm more and more struck by the fact that client success is determined significantly by the various types of resources that they have in play to actually successfully initiate and then execute change. And education, by the way, is how we help the client get outside of more irrational responses and get them engaged. I love that. Like, because fundamentally, my mom's a teacher, right? I'm like, if you want to know why people take meetings with me, it's because they know I'm a published author. They know I'm a subject matter expert. And the worst case scenario, they're going to be able to leech off some good content from me. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's resources, right? When you're talking about how do we help these clients do it, and Clarity gives you some ideas. I mean, there's definitive resource stuff in there, but like, when you get to execution, which is where we all want to be, right? Like, why aren't we advancing in our career more? Well, it's because either we don't have the appropriate resources, or we're not envisioning them and utilizing them properly. It's the same thing with our clients. And some of you are master practitioners at this, not me, right? It's, when it comes from marketing, like, what resources are in place? Like, maybe we don't need to do a super expensive ad campaign or hire a new agency. Maybe what we need to do is is dial in on our client base, right? And that's how I look at it. Like I'm more on the marketing side than anyone else on this call. Like I'm not as good at the growth drive stuff as you guys are. And I said that at the summit and it hasn't gotten better. But like the point being is on the marketing side, I'm like, okay, well, where are we? Discovery. Like what's there? And then what is something we can do to get going? How can we get this client to have a safe but effective pathway forward? George, you can.
There are two questions there. I was going to ask before you made that last point, and I don't want to. And let's hold that last point. I was going to ask who here has held or watched a CEO workshop marketing event that is powered by Clarity. Has anyone here done that other than me? Oh, my
Thinking
Lord.
about it, but I haven't done it.
It is.
I'm working on it, but I
Please
haven't
do.
done it
It's
yet.
hard, right? Filling a room with CEOs, with qualified CEOs is hard. Now, this comes to, oh man, this is another, maybe we'll discuss this next, come back next week. Because a CEO workshop, imagine you're working with a wealth advisor who is able and who sees why there's a what's in it for them for getting a dozen CEOs into a room. And what's in it for the wealth advisor is promoting them as a person who cares for and is a steward of the value of the client's largest asset, which data tells us time and again, it represents 80% of their potential net worth, right? Because it's illiquid, I say potential. So when we can talk about how to get a wealth advisor to understand what's in it for them, and there's a lot in it for them at the beginning of the engagement. We need to stop. We need to also talk about the long road, the long ball, the converting the business into AUM. That is on a day-to-day basis mildly interesting because the wealth advisor and their team has bogeys they need to hit right now. So if you get 15 CEOs in a room and you Andy, facilitate going through growth drive. What do CEOs want? 62% want to grow, 21% want easier to run, 17% want transferable value, right? We need to talk to all three of those, and Clarity is designed to hold those conversations simultaneously. And importantly, Mike, all of us, educate the client about where they might want to be tomorrow, their business's capacity to meet that ultimate why, which is a personal answer. It is a personal answer. And we can't have the growth conversation in a workshop, but we can start getting them to imagine a better future and understand their business, even if it's an amorphous or a diffuse understanding or definition of the future. The future is, well, I need $20 million AUM to fund my lifestyle. I can come up with that pretty quickly and then understand my business's ability to deliver. Imagine the impact. And I will tell you that if you don't walk out of there with at least one engagement, something was wrong. These things are a lead pipe cinch because it's so impactful. I'll stop there.
It's such a huge ask to get one advisor to bring that many of their clients into a meeting when you look at it from a risk mitigation strategy. So I'm not saying that's not if you get the 15 CEOs in that room, you win. There's no question. But I'm always thinking about it from this perspective. Like, so what is the way that you could potentially leverage financial advisors to create that room of 15? Maybe, pay George to come out and do it for you, right? Which is what I would do. Right? Like, hey, George,
what's just want to drink Italian wine.
But like my point being is, like, if you think about where's the sweet spot in the industry, it's potentially at a smaller advisor group. You'll find these smaller advisor groups in the independent channels of Raymond James. You'll find them at UBS teams. And when you start targeting teams of advisors, a couple of cool things happen if you have patience. number one, there's less risk, perceived risk by each advisor in that meeting. Right. So if they're a team, they're not fighting each other for business. They're collectively working together. I've got several of these teams that I'm just in the process of bringing on as clients for myself, right? Just because I only do financial advisors, I don't do regular businesses. But like all of a sudden, with the guys that I refer to, like all of a sudden now we are targeting 10 advisors, and we only have to get one or two of their clients in the room. The perceived effort on their part goes way down, likelihood of execution goes up. And so that would be my one nuance on that, George, is like, hell yes, that should be something that you try and do at least once a quarter. My UBS guys do 2 of those per year, business owner summits, and they bring in people from all over the country that are stone cold experts from within UBS and without, top 10 M&A firms, stuff like that. And they get amazing lead gen from it. I mean, amazing lead gen, and they're not doing growth drive.
Well,
But
they
they
should.
do charge.
And Mike, your point's a very, very, very good one. Agree wholeheartedly. Before you came on, I referred to another conversation of ours, that 3,000 or so advisory firms that have $500 million or more of AUM.
Yeah, I'm going after all of them for my newsletter. So
I would love to be a guest contributor.
no worries. No worries.
Very cool. Great conversation, guys. And I can't believe an hour has almost gone by. Silvana, go
I have
ahead.
a question for next time. I think we've had some really helpful conversations using wealth advisors and financial advisors as COIs. And I'm curious if any of our advisory group is using any other type of COIs and what's working and not working on that. Maybe we can cover that next week, because wealth advisors are great, but they are hard to crack.
So Silvana, that is a great question. And let's discuss that next week. Absolutely. Because there are others. This all goes back to, this is why I stress qualified. And it doesn't have to be wealth advisors. Doesn't matter. We'll talk about that next week. I was hoping that in our last 5 minutes together, we might go around the horn and, if you're willing, share your key takeaway from this conversation. By the way, I'm going to use this recording as this week's podcast. This was a fabulous. Thank you all for sharing. So if we could go around the horn, if you're willing. Silvana, might I start with you? Key takeaway?
I loved Mike's insertions about looking at the smaller wealth advisory groups, and how having multiple advisors bringing 1 or 2 of their clients makes it easier to get past the threshold. So I'm gonna try that. Thank you, Mike.
Who are you going to pass it to, Silvana?
I am going to pass it to Steve Duke. He has not talked today, and
Are you
it's been
kidding?
a
Is
while.
Steve on this call?
Yes.
Steve, you didn't show up Steve, good morning. You didn't show up in my Hollywood squares across the top.
He's been there a long time.
Shame on me.
I came in late, and then I got distracted by a client call, so I'm not qualified to answer the poll question here, George. Sorry.
Perfect. Steve, who are you going to toss it to?
I will send it over to, if Andy's still here, I'll send it to Andy.
I'm here. My takeaway is a nice reminder from Silvana of the value of trade associations, but the coupling of the idea of benchmarking and trade associations. It just twigged something in my brain there, Silvana. Thank you.
Excellent. Who are you going to toss it to, Andy?
I'm going to go to Joe, because Joe has sat through this whole meeting and not said a word. So, Joe, here's your big chance.
Good morning, Joe.
Sure. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate you. I just love hearing you and and I don't think sometimes I can add any value when you're in the room. So, but so Ed and I are working on using borrow your car, right? So this is my scratchy notes. So the idea is taking that borrow your car concept and teach the other service professionals about how to be more respectful with references. And so early stage believe that there's a method. I've actually sent a note to Mike and he's not ready for his study guide yet, but think about being able to take your a team through that book as a way to kind of do professional development. At the same time, let's talk about how this would impact your clients and how would, us working closer together make that happen. So I think we need to start with the spirit of what's in it for them, the radio station there, and work backwards. So that's what we're doing in a small way, but these are all small performers in their own right, but collectively they're pretty good representative of the Central Ohio community.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Who are you going to toss it to?
Did we go with Tim yet?
Tim,
Tim.
yes.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I really got takeaways on 3 different levels. I got insight today from all of you about how to pitch or work, I guess, attract clients at an individual level, at a small group level, and then at a larger group level. So my propeller is spinning, probably starting for sure with the individuals, but I was able to sort of craft a list here of next steps to get in the game with the individuals and then start looking around for some of those smaller and larger groups. So thank you all.
Thanks, Tim. Which leaves you, Mike Garrison. Thanks, Tim.
Well, thanks, Joe. I actually have a rough draft of the study guide and it's on the marketing calendar. So my team is working on it. It wouldn't have happened without you. Wouldn't have happened without you. So you're going to get the first one off the presses, brother. You'll get the first one. I got a lot out of every time Silvana talks. It's especially powerful for me. And it's data as a common language. And I always talk about common language as culture, but I haven't looked at it. I hadn't connected the dots on data being part of that as well. So that was really awesome for me. And since I didn't swear a lot, you can use this as a podcast.
Thanks, Mike. My key takeaway was Andy, reminded me about facilitation. We have a facilitation module class. It's part of our facilitation course. That's one of the hours in the C3D. And remembering that facilitation applies to these conversations outside of a group environment. Facilitation skills are immensely applicable to these one-on-one conversations, whether with COIs and with our common clients and with the applicability is, like Tim said, individual, small group, and many. And that remind myself, frankly, to be a better listener and question asker.
So I won't be able to be here next week. So if I could give you guys a couple of things to think about for your COI conversation for next week, look at who are the vendors for your ideal clients, because we all niche down, right? We're all specialists. We're not trying to sell to everyone. So we've got niches about where we're going, but who are those key vendors, right? And so, for example, for most small business owners that I've worked with in my career, the commercial insurance agents got a lot of influence because they sell something that's very expensive and something that is important, right? And they tend to also have impact on the personal side with that business owner too. You find a lot of very specialty property and casualty stuff for multiple properties, things like that. But I would look at commercial insurance. I would look at also a high-end realtor, high-end mortgage person, right? They look outside the box. The best thing to ask, by the way, is, hey, other than me, who is your favorite person to work with? But I always start with other than me.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. All right. Well, guys, we know what we're going to talk about next week. This was a fantastic discussion. I appreciate all of your input, insights, questions. This is great. Fabulous.
Somehow,
Everyone have a
George,
great week. and we
Thank
will
you.
George,
talk
figure out
very soon.
some way to how to tee that up for people's, so they're prepared. I don't know what that looks like, but
Hey, we
some
just
sort of-
posted in the community. It's going to go out to everyone we touch. And by the way, we made the community public again. So there are closed spaces that people can see but not access. But the public, if you're watching this, you can join the community, sign up. It's free. And away we go. So Joe, post it. Please feel free to post it in the community.
All
Post
right.
it in the coffee Klatsch. It'll present at the top of everyone's feed.
See you guys.
Cool. Awesome,
guys.
Bye,
guys.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.